Made one before the season, prediction video for all the teams. And as we've gotten through 8 or 9 games for most of these teams, we have a pretty good sense of where they will be at the end of the season. And we will start off in the AFC, where I have the surprise 8-0 Steelers right now, going 14-2 and getting the 1 seed, the all-important 1 seed this year, as it's not only going to be home field advantage throughout to the Super Bowl, it's going to be the only first-round bye, as the NFL added the 7th team to the playoffs in each conference. And so the reason for this pick is I know they do play down to their competition. That is something that the Steelers have done with Ben Roethlisberger and Mike Tomlin throughout the years. Barely got away with the win against the Cowboys, but the thing is, they win these close games. There's something about them. And then looking at their schedule, I mean, the next two that they have coming up look pretty winnable. I mean, in the back half, they do have to face the Bengals twice, which can be an upset trap game. Also got to face the Browns and then the Ravens on Thanksgiving. But I just see too much talent in this team to lose the 1 seed. I say they're going to lose 2 more games, but still get the 1 seed at 14-2. Next team, we have the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Chiefs, at 13-3, and they're probably a popular pick to claim that 1 seed, but I just don't really see it. I mean, they're sitting at 7-1, 8-1 currently, and the thing is, they have a pretty hard back half to their season. Reminder, they still have to go to New Orleans, I'm pretty sure, and then they have to host the Buccaneers, 2 hard NFC South matchups. They have to go to Las Vegas. They have to play every team in their division again, which could be some harsh matchups. They got to play the Chargers, who played them tough, and then the Broncos again. So definitely not an easy stretch of games, but they are one of the best teams in the league. Patrick Mahomes, they've looked very good on offense the past few weeks. So would not surprise me if they did claim the 1 seed, but right now I have them at the 2. And then next team, we are going to have the Buffalo Bills at the 3 seed, a very impressive win against the Seahawks, and they're just cleaning up games. They're already at a 7-2 mark on the season. Josh Allen and that offense playing very well. The defense can play clutch at times, and they have a pretty manageable schedule throughout the rest of the season. So I'm going to say that they're going to lose 2 or 3 more games this season. I'll go a bit conservative and give them 11-5, but this team could easily be 12-4 come the end of the season and get that 3rd spot. And then at the 4th seed, the worst division winner will be the Tennessee Titans from the South. And it's really going to come down in the South to them and the Colts. They've got to play the Colts 2 times in the next 3 weeks. If either team sweeps, I'd say they have a major advantage in the division. But I just see the Titans as a much superior team to the Colts. The Titans do have a rough stretch of games, though, coming up in this back half of the schedule. They're currently sitting at 6-2, but as I mentioned, you got the Colts twice. You've got the Ravens. I think you've got the Packers as well on that schedule. So there are some losses there, and therefore, I'm going to say that they're going to have a tumultuous 4-4 rest of the season, but win the division. Next team we have at number 5, controversial perhaps, Ravens going 13-3. They have not looked as good as they were at last season in the first stretch of games this season. First half going 6-2. And that's a bit underwhelming considering the losses are to the best 2 teams they played in the Steelers and the Chiefs. And people want to see more out of Lamar Jackson, and I'm saying they're going 7-1. And they have a tough stretch of games. I mean, they have the Patriots this next week. That's not a foregone conclusion. They have the Steelers on Thanksgiving, as I already mentioned. And then you have a few division games, and then the Titans. So they're not locked up even at 13-3, but they still could have a way through the division if they win that Thanksgiving game against the Steelers. I just don't think that they can do enough to get there. I'm going to say 13-3 for the Ravens. at an impressive wild card position. Next team, number 6 seed, we have the Indianapolis Colts. And I see a team that is great against average. They can really win the games that they're supposed to win with Phillip Rivers. But against the good teams, man, I mean, they played so well in the first half and only had a 3-point lead against the Ravens. And, of course, it eroded in the second half for them. I mean, that's a very depressing loss. As I mentioned, 2 against the Titans. I mean, maybe they don't even win 1 against the Titans, which would put them in a terrible situation. But they have an impressive defense, and assuming that they get the running game going in this last stretch, I think they are going to finish 10-6, another 5-3 half of the season to put them at the 6th position. And then the Raiders I have at 9-7, controversial last spot, but I think they will get it done. I mean, a close game against the Chargers last week, they get it done. An impressive win against the Chiefs earlier in the season, also against the Saints. And let me tell you guys that they had a very hard stretch of games in the first half of the season. That's the hardest part of their schedule, and now it kind of opens up for them. They have the Broncos twice, the Chargers again once, and then they have the Chiefs at home. So it could open up a little bit, but the Ravens do play teams very close, so you can't always count on them to win. I'm going to say they go 4-4 in their last 8 and barely sneak into the playoffs at 9-7. And then maybe a controversial team left out is the Browns at 9-7, and the basis for this is in their Week 8 matchup, the Raiders edged out the Browns, giving them that tiebreaker. And without Odell Beckham Jr., I really don't like the Browns' chances. I mean, they have a lot of winnable games on that schedule, but reminder that they have the Ravens and Steelers coming up, and they don't play the Bengals again, who they beat twice. So it's going to be pretty tough for the Browns. I think they also have to play the Titans in that second half of the season, but I think they're just going to get edged out here. A 4-4 end of the season, I mean, that's about where I expect this team to be, hovering around 500. And then we have an impressive-looking team right now, 5-3 Dolphins, but I do think they will start cooling down as the season goes on. I mean, Tua was not impressive versus the Rams. He had a better game against the Cardinals, but they did get pretty lucky, scored a defensive touchdown, got a few breaks to go their way at the end of the game, and they have a decently hard schedule coming down the stretch, and I don't know if they're going to be able to win enough games with Tua being a rookie thrown in the fire at this point in the season. So Dolphins 8-8, and that concludes in the hunt for the AFC. And now on to the NFC playoff predictions. In the first spot, we have the Packers at 13-3. And this did not look good for them after they lost to the Buccaneers, or even a week ago when they lost to the Vikings. But, I mean, I just think that they win the games and blow out the bad teams. And they have 2 more games against the Bears. I think they'll win both of those. They have the Titans. I think they'll go 7-1. They're a great team at home. And when they get an early lead on a team, Aaron Rodgers can keep passing the football, get them an even bigger lead, and then the pass rushers for that team can tee off on the quarterback. They're not a great team against the run, but not a very hard schedule in the back half. Give me the Packers going 13-3 and getting that first round bye. Next team is the 2 seed Seahawks, and I would have given them the edge, but they looked very lackluster against the Bills. This is the concern that I had for them going into the season. I mean, I wasn't too concerned after the Cardinals lost because that was just a shootout. But when that defense could blatantly not stop Josh Allen, and then you see Russell Wilson look human, he gave up the ball 4 times in the game. So the Seahawks also do not have an easy schedule in the last 8 games. They have to face the Rams twice, the Cardinals again, and then the Niners the last week of the season, who could be hunting for a playoff berth. This just doesn't look like a team that will get to that 13-win mark. They could still win the 1 seed if the Packers fall off a little bit, but I say they're going to win the division, probably lose 2 more games, but just not an easy schedule and a bit concerned by that last week's performance. Next team, 3rd seed, the Saints at 11-5, and might be a little bit of a shocker that I have them going 11-5, but as I mentioned earlier when I was talking about the Chiefs, they have the Chiefs, also have the Falcons twice, and the Falcons are actually surprisingly good under Raheem Morris, so they might steal one. I'm pretty sure they have the Panthers as well, so it's not going to be an easy schedule. I think they're barely going to hold on to that division lead come the end of the season, but make no mistake, this is not the team that we saw against the Buccaneers. They have had so many close games that have gone their way, including the Bears and the Chargers, which they could have easily lost. So give me the Saints at 11-5, barely holding on to win the South. And then the next team, the basement of the playoff picture, we have the Eagles winning the East and going 6-9-1, barely sneaking into the playoffs before inevitably falling out. And, I mean, that tie that they got against the Bengals might end up pushing them in. They are 2-1 against NFC East teams, and that's what it's going to come down to. I think they go 2-1 against the NFC teams in the latter half of the schedule, and that's what's going to push them into the playoffs. May get one other win there. But when you're looking at the rest of this NFC East, all of the other teams have 2 wins and are looking very bad. I mean, the Giants, only 2 wins are versus the football team. Football team looking like they're going to have Alex Smith for the rest of the season, but I don't know about them for the rest of the season. And then the Cowboys, I mean, what can you really say with the quarterback situation and the defensive situation there? So it's really the best of the abysmal there, and I'm going to say that Eagles get out 6-9-1. At the 5 seed, we have the Buccaneers, who barely get edged out by the tiebreaker, the Saints having won both head-to-head matchups. A very good team. As I mentioned, they have to face the Chiefs, and then they're going to have the Falcons twice, just like the Saints under Raheem Morris. They're a great team. They have the Panthers again. They're also going to have to face the Vikings and Lions out of the North. Those are 2 teams that could grab an upset game, and they did not look impressive against the Saints. They're going to have to really bounce back if they want to have a contention in the NFC South. And then the 6 and 7 seeds, very close. I'm going to narrowly give this one to the Rams at 9-7. Make no mistake about it, some of the games and some of their losses, they have not looked good, in particular against the 49ers and the Dolphins. But McVay and Goff are pretty good in their wins, given that 4 out of the 5 have been against the NFC East. I think they're going to barely stumble into the playoffs at 9-7. As I mentioned before, this team has 2 games left against the Seahawks, 2 games left against the Cardinals, and then 1 game left on the 49ers, who beat them on Sunday Night Football. So those are not givens. Give me the Rams 9-7, 4-4 to finish out. I think McVay does not miss out on the playoffs again. This is the record that they had last season. It was too mediocre for the playoffs, but with how it's looking in the NFC, I think they're going to get in. 7 seed and tied with them, I have the Cardinals going 9-7. And they look very impressive in their wins, but very bad in their losses. I mean, they should not have lost to the Lions, Panthers, or the Dolphins, as happened last week. They have the Seahawks on a Thursday Night Football matchup. They're going to have the Niners, who are going to be hungry for a playoff spot at the end of the season. And then, as I mentioned, the Rams twice. So they also have the Bills on that schedule. So I'm not really liking it. I'm going to say as the Rams 4-4 to end it out and barely sneak into the playoffs with that extra playoff spot from this year. Notable teams in the hunt, first being the Bears, and this would be a real disappointment if this happened. I mean, they started out 5-1, I think that was a fraudulent record, but still, with an extra team added to the playoffs, you cannot miss the playoffs when going 5-1. But I think it's gonna happen. I mean, those 3 games that they lost weren't even the brunt of the schedule. I mean, they have 2 games to the Packers. They could easily lose those. Aaron Rodgers great against Chicago. They have 2 games against the rejuvenated Vikings team, who, when they play well, they can beat anyone. And then they have the Lions again. So, pretty hard divisional opponents. So, I just can't see the playoffs for this team. I mean, who knows who they'll have at quarterback? I mean, maybe they turn back to Trubisky. Still, though, the offense just isn't going to put up enough points. I mean, I just can't see this team getting to 9 wins. Maybe it's 8 wins that makes it into the playoff, and maybe in that scenario, the Bears can crack in, but the defense is really going to have to carry this team in the second half if they want in. Next team, another real disappointment, is the 49ers, but this one because of injuries. And I have them going 7-9. Maybe others just don't have them in the conversation, but I think they could butt their head in. I mean, the next 3 weeks are going to be very telling. They have the Saints on the road, who looked very good last week. They have a bye then they have the Rams and then Bills. If they lose all 3 of those games, they would be sitting at a terrible 4-8 record. If they lose all 3, then they're done. But say they win one of those games, go 5-7, then you have the football team at home and then the Cowboys on the road. Those 2 teams have a combined 4 wins. I think the Niners will win both of those if they need them in playoff contention. And then you're 7-7 going into Week 16. You're at the Cardinals, and there's a possibility with how it's looking for the injury timeline that you could have Jimmy G and George Kittle back for those games. They already have some players coming back from injuries. It's looking like they're going to have Mostert in the coming weeks. Deebo Samuel, Richard Sherman, Dee Ford. So it could all come together for this team. They obviously have the Cardinals in Seattle the last 2 weeks of the season, so that's going to tell a lot. But it's certainly not looking good for them right now. I have them at 7-9. Then we have the Vikings at 7-9 as well, and if they could have cleaned up and not blown some leads early in the season, they could really be in this playoff conversation. But as for now, I mean, they did get those 2 games with the Green Bay Packers off the schedule early. 2 games against the Bears that I think they could win. But at 7-9, that assumes that they go 4-4 in the latter half of their schedule. So they're gonna need a very nice run from this team to try and sneak into the playoffs. So those are my playoff predictions. Comment yours down below, and thank you for watching.